Hey guys, welcome back to WrestleNews 365. Hope everyone is doing well. Happy SummerSlam Sunday. As we just share on Twitter that we are now live on YouTube. SummerSlam is here. It feels like we've been talking about it for weeks, isn't it? Discussing it. What's going to happen. The tagline, you'll never see it coming, right? That's what they keep saying on WWE TV and on the advertisements that we're seeing. You'll never see it coming. Of course, WWE SummerSlam takes place tonight at the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida, inside the ThunderDome. Yes, the ThunderDome. We see our second glimpse of the ThunderDome after its debut Friday night on SmackDown. I have registered once again to be part of the ThunderDome tonight for SummerSlam. I'm going to give it a second shot. You could register for Raw yesterday. I missed out on the registration window for that. If you saw my ThunderDome experience video earlier on Friday night, I didn't have the best experience with ThunderDome. The stream was very, very laggy. I didn't actually have any audio as well, and then I was kicked out after 15 minutes. I think probably there were rumors that people were being kicked out because they weren't interacting enough, they weren't vocal enough, or they weren't moving around a lot. I was looking away from the screen because I was in the Thunderdome, but I had to watch SmackDown on my television because I couldn't watch it on the Thunderdome. It was that bad. So I'm going to give it another shot tonight. We'll see how it goes. I'll be doing some screen grabs of it. We'll also do SummerSlam highlights and reactions at 11:30 tonight, as we did for NXT TakeOver last night too. So I'll set up a stream later, so be sure to join there so we can discuss SummerSlam, break down what happens, break down what we never saw coming. We'll be doing that. So really excited for SummerSlam tonight. But what we're going to talk about today in this video is Braun Strowman versus The Fiend, WWE Universal Championship, Falls Count Anywhere. That's the stipulation that has been added on over the last couple of days. Falls Count Anywhere. Exciting, interesting. I think that this is the Braun Strowman Bray Wyatt part of this feud that I've been interested in the most, because let's face it, this feud between Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt has been going on since WrestleMania now. After coming out of WrestleMania, of course, Braun Strowman defeated Goldberg to become the WWE Universal Champion at WrestleMania in very quick fashion. Remember as well that this year, and I know I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but this year has just been nuts, hasn't it? It's just been so insane. The fact that Braun Strowman didn't have a match going into WrestleMania, he didn't have a match scheduled, and then next thing you know, the pandemic happens, Roman Reigns goes home, Braun Strowman gets added in at the last minute for no reason. Remember, they still haven't technically explained why Roman Reigns is at home in terms of kayfabe and storyline on SmackDown. They never did. They just said instead Braun Strowman's facing Goldberg at WrestleMania. They never said. So realistically in storyline, we still to this day do not have an explanation as to why Braun Strowman is the Universal Champion. So that's interesting. But ever since he defeated Goldberg at WrestleMania, it's been pretty much Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt facing off. The first match was at Money in the Bank, which was Bray Wyatt versus Firefly Funhouse Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman, and that was probably I was just about to say this is my least favorite version of the match, and that's probably not true because we had the match at Extreme Rules afterwards. What I will say is I think that match at Money in the Bank was a strange one, because obviously we don't usually see the Firefly Funhouse Mr. Rogers version of Bray Wyatt have many matches, right? We've seen him face The Miz at TLC last year, and I believe that's it. I think that's it. I think that's the only sweater-wearing Bray Wyatt match we've seen. So we don't usually see him compete that much, but that match was just fine. There wasn't anything really spectacular about it. We had the puppets at ringside, that was fine, but apart from that, that was about it, really, wasn't it? And that's not to say that the match itself wasn't highly entertaining or anything like that. I just didn't think it was very good. Hi to Anthony in the chat who's joining us today. Thanks for joining us, pal. So that match at Money in the Bank was fine, but really didn't do anything for me. Then coming out of that, we had Braun Strowman actually took a month off from facing Bray Wyatt. In reality, Bray Wyatt had took some time off. His wife JoJo had given birth to their second child, so he was away from WWE television for a while. And Braun Strowman went up against The Miz and John Morrison at Backlash, 2-on-1 handicap match to retain the Universal Championship. I didn't really care for that feud, to be honest. It was obviously filler, and it felt like that. At no point did it feel like The Miz and John Morrison, did it feel like they were going to, at any point, threaten Braun Strowman for the Universal title. So, yeah, I think the less said about that match, the better. And then we found out coming out of Backlash that the Eater of Worlds Bray Wyatt version had returned to WWE. Now, this was interesting at the start because this was the version of Bray Wyatt that, of course, brought Braun Strowman to WWE. So a lot of people were interested in seeing that. And the problem is with that sort of thing, when something's gone away for a while, you're excited to see it come back, right? That's the thing. But in reality, I think once the Eater of Worlds version of Bray Wyatt came back, we got reminded as to why it had run its course in WWE, and why this version of the Firefly Funhouse version of Bray Wyatt, and why the Fiend had been such a success in WWE, because that Eater of Worlds version of Bray Wyatt, whilst it was in 2013, 2014, very exciting, very cutting edge, and very different, eventually it just became very boring. And that might be, some people might not agree with me with that, but eventually it was just very boring. I found it very boring. The promos were very long, very rambling, didn't make a lot of sense. The Eater of Worlds version of Bray Wyatt would cut a promo, and then afterwards it'd be like, I have no idea what he said. And some people will say that that's the point. And whilst that maybe is an element of it, coming out of it, what story have you told? What story have you told? Because I have no idea what you just said. So I kind of realised that once again when the Eater of Worlds version of Bray Wyatt came back. But this led to a Wyatt swamp fight at the Horror Show at Extreme Rules, non-title. And honestly, that match was a disaster for me. It just wasn't good. Didn't like it, didn't enjoy it. I've been a big fan of WWE and their cinematic matches during this pandemic era of WWE. I think they've done a really good job in some of these cinematic matches, right? The best, in my opinion, was the Boneyard match at WrestleMania, very closely with the Firefly Funhouse match between Bray Wyatt and John Cena at WrestleMania. I thought that was great. I enjoyed the Money in the Bank ladder match. That cinematic match I thought was great. But this cinematic match at the Horror Show at Extreme Rules, the Wyatt Swamp fight, was no good. It was no good. The way it was shot, I didn't like. The story in it just didn't make a lot of sense for me. The high points in it were arguably the appearance of Alexa Bliss as a Sister Abigail to try and tempt Braun Strowman, and that would be a harbinger of things to come. Right, that was what the story that we were going to get post Extreme Rules, and arguably the best thing about it as well, in addition of Alexa Bliss in that Wyatt Swamp fight, was having the Fiend return at the end. That shot of the Fiend emerging from the swamp at the end of the Wyatt Swamp fight was the shot, and it was a really great shot. The production was really great on that. But apart from that, I thought it was the worst cinematic match that WWE had done. Very poor. I don't hope to see the Eater of Worlds version of Bray Wyatt again, because I don't think there's any need for him to be back. So coming out of Extreme Rules, you knew, okay, we're going to get the Fiend versus Strowman heading into SummerSlam. I wasn't totally against that at the time, but coming out of that Wyatt Swamp fight, I was like, oh, is this going to carry on? But I have to give WWE credit. I have to give Braun Strowman credit. I have to give Bray Wyatt credit. I think this chapter of this feud has actually been quite good. Now, it's had its moments, but I do think it's quite good. So coming out of Extreme Rules, we had a match where it was Friday night on SmackDown, and we had Nikki Cross going up against Bayley for the SmackDown Women's Championship, and Alexa Bliss was in the corner of Nikki Cross. Bayley defeats Nikki Cross. Nikki Cross, after the match, gets frustrated. She shoves down Alexa Bliss and goes to the back, leaving Alexa Bliss on her own in the middle of the ring. The lights go out. They come back on. The red light of doom is there, and the Fiend locks on the mandible claw for Alexa Bliss. This angle, that when they did that, absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And you know it's brilliant because it made you feel. It made you feel it. Some people I saw some. First of all, some people on social media I saw that were horrified by this. Absolutely horrified. How dare he? The guy should be locked up. How dare he? It's nice to know that some people still believe, isn't it? It's nice to know that some people still believe. I'm assuming that these people are the same people that when they watch Breaking Bad, they hunt down Bryan Cranston and report him for cooking up drugs. Because that must be what they do. They must believe in everything they see on TV. It's a work, guys. It's a work. So that angle when he locked in the mandible claw on Alexa Bliss, loved that angle. It was shot phenomenally. The way that Alexa Bliss sold it was great. The Fiend, just as a look, is just great. The production behind it, superb, and it got a lot of buzz. I think the next day on YouTube, it was one of the high. It was like trending on YouTube. It got a lot of buzz on social media too. Great segment, and a lot of people went, okay, they're following on from Alexa Bliss being part of the Wyatt Swamp fight. Alexa Bliss is going to be involved in this feud because Alexa Bliss and Braun Strowman do have a history. And they touch on this during this storyline. But of course, Alexa Bliss and Braun Strowman were a tag team in the Mixed Match Challenge series they used to do, Team Little Big. And during that point in time, which they were in the Mixed Match Challenge, they would sort of hint at and flirt that there was going to be some kind of romantic relationship between Braun Strowman and Alexa Bliss, Beauty and the Beast, right? That's the storyline they're going with there. So what way does the Fiend try and get back at Braun Strowman? He locks in the mandible claw on Alexa Bliss. And bear in mind that Braun Strowman was confirmed to be missing from WWE at this point because at the end of the Wyatt Swamp fight at the Horror Show at Extreme Rules, the Fiend had dragged Braun Strowman down into the swamp itself and disappeared. So we didn't know where Braun Strowman was going to be. So after that, the following week, we know that the Fiend is going to appear once again on SmackDown. He appears in the ring with Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss at this point is wearing the same clothes that she wore the week prior. So they're sort of subtly implying that not only did the Fiend lock on the mandible claw on Alexa Bliss, but he kidnapped the poor woman. I mean, wow, just sick stuff. And the amazing thing is, I say these things, and it looks like the Fiend is going to come out of this storyline the babyface. Incredible. So the following week, he's going to lock on the mandible claw again to Alexa Bliss, but this time Alexa Bliss manages to stop it. She manages to stop the mandible claw being locked on as she strokes the face, the mask of the Fiend, and the Fiend is shocked by this. He's very confused. He stands back. I don't know if the Fiend's ever had some form of physical contact in his life from the opposite sex, so he stands up and gets away. He stops this. And then it leads to Braun Strowman coming on the Titantron. He starts talking about how he's going to come after Bray Wyatt, and that the only reason that the Fiend is attacking Alexa Bliss is to get to Braun Strowman, but Braun Strowman says he doesn't care about Alexa Bliss. I don't care about Alexa Bliss. Who's Alexa Bliss? Right? Who cares about her? And this was interesting because once he cut this promo, Braun Strowman, that was the first time light bulb went off in my head of that feels very, very heel-like. Braun Strowman comes across here like a total heel. You've just had this person that you're implying that you have romantic feelings for has been assaulted by this monster, and your response to that is, I don't care. And then minutes prior to that, the Fiend has sort of shown some form of emotion for Alexa Bliss. It kind of felt like the double turn, the wheels of the double turn were already starting to spin there. So the following week on SmackDown, they promote that we're going to have a confrontation between Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt, the Fiend. The first time that Braun Strowman is going to be seen on WWE, in person on WWE TV since the Horror Show at Extreme Rules. He comes out, bold Strowman. Braun Strowman apparently got dragged down so far in the swamp that he lost his hair, and now Gene Snitsky is the new Universal Champion, or Eric Rowan has dyed his beard because he's the new Universal Champion. All jokes aside there, as I mentioned previously, I think the bold look actually does look really good on Braun Strowman. Sometimes his hair previously looked absolutely horrendous. A couple of times he hadn't wetted it down, and he would come out and he looked like a bad version of Mufasa from The Lion King. So I'm glad that he's changed his look up. I'm always for people evolving their look, changing the way they look. The best superstars in WWE history and the best professional wrestlers in just history of professional wrestling. You have to evolve the way you look. You have to evolve the way you talk, the way you walk, the way you look, your character. Evolution is the name of the game. That's how you stay relevant. That's how you're successful. So thumbs up for me for the new look for Braun Strowman, even though it's a little bit jarring at first, but I think it looks pretty good. I think he looks pretty good with the bald head. And I think he might have been losing his hair anyway, to be honest with you. So I thought the bold look for Braun Strowman was fine. he comes out and Alexa Bliss confronts him first instead of The Fiend and says, how come you said these things? How come you said you didn't care about me? And you didn't care about us? I know you're lying. And during this period of time, Braun Strowman can't even look. He can't even look at Alexa Bliss, which tells you that despite Braun Strowman saying he doesn't care, he does care. Now, he says to Alexa Bliss, everyone The Fiend touches changes, and you're going to be no different. You're trying to stop me being a monster, but I need to be a monster to defeat The Fiend. Tells her to go away and get rid of her. The irony being is that he's saying that everyone The Fiend touches changes, implying that Alexa Bliss is the one to change, but The Fiend has touched Braun Strowman, and he has changed. He's morphing into a bad guy. He's changed his look up. So The Fiend has already changed Braun Strowman. Maybe he just doesn't even know it at this point. Alexa Bliss tries to talk some sense to him. She slaps him about 1,000,000 times, absolutely paintbrushes the beard off of Braun Strowman's face. If he had any hair left on his head, she would have slapped it off. And then Braun Strowman reacts to this as any normal, rational babyface would do. He picks Alexa Bliss up and throws her up in the air. As he throws her up in the air, the lights go out and out comes The Fiend. But this time, The Fiend is in the ring with Alexa Bliss. Braun Strowman has now disappeared. So apparently Braun Strowman, a bit like The Fiend, has the capability now, the supernatural skills to disappear into the darkness, like Sting and like The Undertaker and like Kane and like all of those people that can disappear into the darkness. Braun Strowman has perfected that ability too. So he's left. He then appears on the Titantron, starts doing his Kane-like maniacal laugh, and The Fiend does his maniacal laugh too, and that's how they ended SmackDown. And then this past week, on Friday Night SmackDown, of course, the debut of the ThunderDome, Vince McMahon comes out to start the show. And as Vince McMahon is standing in the ring, welcome us to the ThunderDome. I'm not going to do my Vince McMahon impression, because the last 2 times I've done it, I sound like The Undertaker with a bad throat. So maybe impressions just aren't my deal. But The Fiend interrupts the chairman this past week on SmackDown. Comes out. I mentioned this at the time in the reactions after SmackDown, that The Fiend is arguably, now that The Undertaker is retired, there's no one more intimidating, more supernatural, more scary than The Fiend, right? So, you know, the same way that when The Undertaker's gong went off, you'd have the shock, or you had The Undertaker walk into the ring, you'd have people in the ring selling, oh my gosh, this is so terrifying, this is scary, the dead man is still alive and he's going to come and beat the hell out of me. You would think that that's going to be the same thing for The Fiend during his entrance. Now, The Fiend made his entrance with Vince McMahon standing in the ring. The entire Amway Center changed into a fiendom. It was red, it was black, it was lights, there was lasers. It looked great. The entrance looked absolutely great. And there's actually rumors that Code Orange, the people that sing Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, Bray Wyatt's entrance theme, are actually going to be performing live tonight at SummerSlam. So keep an eye out for that. That should be absolutely excellent. I was about to say I love a live performance, and I do, but that doesn't always mean they're very good. Do you remember, if you watched AEW Revolution this past February, is it Downstate? Is that the band that sings Cody Rhodes' theme? They sung Cody Rhodes to the ring, and my God, it was an awful performance. It was honestly horrific. It was so bad that it almost ruined the entrance. Everyone was like, man, this band cannot perform live. And I know sometimes it's difficult with the choreographed entrances, but man, that was not good. But we have seen Code Orange actually perform for WWE Live before. I believe at a takeover. I cannot remember for the life of me which takeover it was. But Code Orange, they actually sing Aleister Black's theme. And they did the live entrance for Aleister Black at an NXT takeover. And they were really, really good. So I have no doubt that they'll absolutely smash it out of the park for The Fiend's entrance tonight at SummerSlam. So really excited for that one. But going back to SmackDown on Friday, you had Vince McMahon in the ring, Mr. McMahon, The Fiend, and he just did not sow any form of fear of The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. He just sort of stared at him like, what the hell? Who are you? What the hell are you? And it was very humorous, I felt, that he just didn't care. I was excited, though, because I thought, if this was the old Mr. McMahon, this was the old WWE back in the day, you'd have Vince McMahon out there, and you'd have someone come out, and you'd just have someone beat the hell out of Vince McMahon, and then that guy immediately gets a rub, and he's skyrocketed. And I thought this would be great. I thought, you know what, The Fiend, even if he's meant to be a babyface, Stone Cold, The Rock, all of these guys laid their hand on Vince McMahon in the past and they became bigger baby faces. Why not have the Fiend just lock on the mandible claw to Vince McMahon, and then Bray Wyatt can hang up the ultimate picture in the Firefly Funhouse of Vince McMahon on his wall of victims, right? That's the ideal. That's the ideal right there. But that wasn't the case. He stares off with Vince McMahon, and then Braun Strowman, the Strowman Express, the A-Train comes out and confronts the Fiend, and they have a stare down. You're thinking you're going to see some form of physicality, because remember, we haven't actually seen any physicality from the Fiend and Braun Strowman in this feud yet. Of course, we saw the slight physicality at the Horror Show at Extreme Rules, where actually we didn't. I was just about to say we saw the Fiend lock in the mandible claw, but I'm pretty sure it was the Eater of Worlds that locked in the mandible claw to pull Braun Strowman down to the swamp. So I don't think we've seen any physicality from the Fiend or Braun Strowman so far. So we thought we were going to see it Friday. We didn't, because then the ring was surrounded by Retribution, and it looks like at this point you're thinking, okay, Braun Strowman and the Fiend, they're going to team up and they're going to fight off Retribution. Wasn't the case, because in reality, what happened? In reality, I loved this. The Fiend starts laughing. He waves at Braun Strowman as if to say, bye-bye. The lights go out, come back on, the Fiend's gone. That's a nice callback to the prior week, because that's what Braun Strowman did the prior week. There was some criticism online, that was so random, why would the Fiend disappear? Well, that's what Braun Strowman did to him the prior week. So I had no problem with that. I thought the logic there was actually very, very sound. So later on in the night, we have an episode of the Firefly Funhouse. And it's Mr. Rogers, Bray Wyatt, once again. He's doing a promo about SummerSlam. He does this sort of Shakespearean puppetry of Alexa Bliss, and I think the Fiend or Braun Strowman, I can't remember, but I enjoyed that. And then Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, well, no, not the Fiend, the Firefly Funhouse Bray Wyatt apparently has super smell. His senses are so strong, or Braun Strowman smells so bad, that mid-promo he just goes, "What took you so long?" And Braun Strowman appears out of nowhere, starts beating the hell out of Bray Wyatt. He infiltrated the Firefly Funhouse. You had Corey Graves on commentary sell it as if, I can't believe Braun Strowman got into the Funhouse. He lives in a parallel dimension. He actually said parallel dimension, alternate dimension. That's where the Firefly Funhouse is. As if Braun Strowman had somehow infiltrated that, and it was so difficult to infiltrate the Firefly Funhouse that way. Seth Rollins did it, and he burned it down, and then it appeared about a week later anyway. So I don't think it's that difficult to infiltrate. But anyway, Braun Strowman and then brawls with the Fiend, with Bray Wyatt rather, backstage. They're brawling backstage, and then Braun Strowman choke slams Bray Wyatt off a platform onto concrete below, similar to the Big Show choke slamming Kurt Angle to the floor in, was it SmackDown in 2004? I think it was. It was a similar sort of thing to that, and that whole spot really annoys me whenever they've done it, because they've done it a million times. They even did it on the NXT a couple of days prior to that, where they had Rhea Ripley powerbomb Mercedes Martinez onto the concrete at Full Sail. And the way they do it is they do the powerbomb, they do the chokeslam, whatever, and then the person who's on the receiving end of the move just sort of disappears out of the shot of camera. It's an implied splat on the floor on the concrete, and then they do a cut and you see them there laying on the floor when obviously they landed on a crash pad. Now, I'm not saying that someone should legitimately powerbomb or be chokeslammed onto concrete. That's the furthest thing from what I'm saying, because why would you do that? That would be insane. However, that whole powerbomb chokeslam to the concrete thing, it never looks good. It never looks good. It always just looks rubbish. So don't do it. Don't do it. Find another way. Find another way. It just looks very hokey. It always looks very, very hokey. So I didn't like that. But Braun Strowman says, some smack to him, and then Bray Wyatt's on the floor selling the injury. We have officials, we have agents, we have medical personnel go to attend to Bray Wyatt. They load him up on a stretcher, put him into an ambulance. Ambulance goes away, and then the ambulance slowly starts to reverse. And Adam Pearce, God bless Adam Pearce, because he acted his little pants off. He really did. He was fuming. He was livid because the ambulance starts to reverse, and he's incredulous. What are you doing? How dare you reverse? Come on, we got to go. You've got to go. He was so angry. He sold it like a champ. He was so frustrated that this ambulance, how dare this ambulance reverse? So the ambulance reverses back. The lights go red inside the ambulance. And the way they shot it is that the lights are red. They pan to all of the agents, officials, wrestlers, whoever, and they just go silent. They're shocked. Any noise they were making is gone. They slowly pan, and then you see the Fiend standing there, coming out of the ambulance. You then had Corey Graves on commentary go, "It's him." Oh, come on! You don't need to put a button on it like that. Just let the scene talk for itself. You don't need Corey Graves over the top of it going, "Oh, it's him." I know who it is. Everyone knows it's the Fiend. We saw him earlier on in the show. You don't need to go, "It's him." I hated that line. That line was so frustrating. But the way this was shot, the production of it was very, very good. The production of it was great. And you can't fault WWE for their production on SmackDown Friday night. I thought the production of everything was very, very good. And this comes from someone who got kicked out of the ThunderDome after 15 minutes. And then after I was out of the ThunderDome, I saw teddy bears, stuffed bears. I saw a guy asleep on the screen. I'm thinking these guys are more entertaining than me. A stuffed bear, a stuffed animal. I mean, I was just about to close my YouTube channel after that. Because if I can't live up to a stuffed animal, then what's the point? Seriously, what's the point? But the production was very, very good. The camera slowly zooms in to the Fiend, and then the Fiend sticks his tongue out and starts laughing. I started laughing when he stuck his tongue out. I don't know if it was meant to be comedic, but it was hilarious. It was hilarious. But that was the go-home angle for SummerSlam. And you know what I thought? I thought the angle was good. I thought SmackDown was pretty good Friday night. It wasn't a knockout, amazing one. It got over 2 million viewers like I predicted. I predicted that SmackDown would get over 2 million viewers and do it's not an amazing number still. Prior to the pandemic, SmackDown was about 2.5 million, maybe a little bit higher. Now it's over 2 million is a good number. So let's not get carried away here. It wasn't a fantastic number, but I predicted it would do over 2 million, and that's what it got. So I thought it did a nice setup for tonight's match between Braun Strowman and The Fiend. Lots of rumours about what could happen tonight. As I mentioned, a couple of days afterwards, was it yesterday? I believe yesterday. I think it was Talking Smack, or someone revealed that it's a Falls Count Anywhere match now. So I think that does help the match a lot. A standard match, let's be honest, of all they've done to each other during this feud so far, a standard wrestling match just wouldn't suffice at this point, really, would it? They've wrestled and tried to drown each other in swamps. The Fiend's locked on the mandible claw to Alexa Bliss. Braun Strowman's attacked Alexa Bliss. Poor Alexa Bliss, because she has just been through the ringer on this. But they're being chokeslammed backstage onto concrete. The Fiend's appearing out of ambulances. A Falls Count Anywhere match is very, very good. And look, it's an empty arena. The Amway Center has been converted into the ThunderDome, but there is so much they could do. In an empty arena, Falls Count Anywhere, there is so much creatively that they can do. And also it's interesting because you have to remember, The Fiend first won the WWE Universal Championship last year at Crown Jewel in 2019 in Saudi Arabia. He defeated Seth Rollins to capture the WWE Universal Championship. Now, what was that match? What was that match that he defeated Seth Rollins in? What was the stipulation in that match? You guessed it. It was a Falls Count Anywhere match. So, as I predicted yesterday on the preview and prediction show, I think that The Fiend once again is going to win his second WWE Universal Championship in a Falls Count Anywhere match. A little bit of a tidbit there that I think is quite interesting. Alexa Bliss, of course, is going to be involved in this somehow. It's just a case of who does she side with, right? Does she side with Braun Strowman? Does she side with The Fiend? I've predicted for a while that I think this is a double turn here. I think Braun Strowman's coming across very much like the heel, and The Fiend's coming across very much like the babyface, despite attacking Alexa Bliss at the start of this feud. And a lot of people, this has divided a lot of people, because there's this thought process or this avenue of thought that The Fiend can't be a babyface. How dare they be a babyface? How dare The Fiend be turned into a babyface? He's called The Fiend, all of this sort of stuff. And to me, that just makes no sense. That argument that The Fiend can't be a babyface is ridiculous to me. Of course he can be a babyface. Of course he can be a babyface. And people say, well, why? How can he be a babyface? He's a monster. The Undertaker is one of the biggest babyfaces in WWE history. Now, The Fiend isn't The Undertaker. The Fiend is the first Fiend. He's not The Undertaker. There's only one Undertaker. But this idea that because he's a monster, he can't be a babyface is ridiculous. All of the best villains and the biggest and best villains in television and movie history, they have their initial run as a villain, but they are so good. They are so good as villains and so iconic as villains that eventually they become the babyface. They becomes the star. Darth Vader, right? Darth Vader, iconic movie villain. He becomes a babyface at the end of that movie, Return of the Jedi. The Terminator, he's the villain, and then after that, he's the babyface. Arnold Schwarzenegger is the biggest babyface. Right? The Undertaker's the same. When The Undertaker debuted, he is a dead zombie who buries people alive, right? Puts them in caskets, doesn't die, and yet he becomes one of the biggest babyfaces in WWE history. If you're a villain and you're cool, you become a babyface. It doesn't matter if you're a monster or not. That's irrelevant. Steve Austin, right? I know he wasn't a monster, but he was a heel, a big heel. Like some of the stuff he did, he was invading people's homes, right? Brian Pillman got his pistol. And all of that sort of stuff, but when you're such a good villain, you have to become a babyface. That's how it works. The Joker. The Joker is one of the most iconic villains in all of cinema and print media and whatever, right? What happened last year? He had his own Origins movie. Why? Because he's such a great villain that he became the babyface. And even though if you watch that movie, it depends how you would perceive it if he's the babyface in that movie, but you get my point. So the idea that The Fiend can't be a babyface, oh, how dare they make The Fiend a babyface? The guy's so over. The guy's so over that I don't think WWE has a choice. And there's very few people that sell as much merch as The Fiend. Very few people. During that run last year where he first made his debut, The Fiend was outselling everyone on merchandise. Whether it was the Hurt and Heal gloves, whether it was the Fiend mask, whether it's the Firefly Funhouse puppets, whether it was the Firefly Funhouse other merchandise that they had, nobody could outsell the Fiend in merch. So if WWE looks at the bottom line and see who makes money, they look at the Fiend and they go, this guy's a heel. If we turn him into a babyface and we don't change his character, all we change is his opponents. Instead of going after the bad guys, he now goes after the good guys. That's money. That's money, and WWE are never, ever going to turn away money. Ever. They never have, they never will. So I think making The Fiend an anti-hero babyface makes all the sense in the world. So, and Braun Strowman as a babyface, he always does his work as better as a heel. That early run he had, 2016, 2017, as a heel against Roman Reigns, that's his best work, and he still hasn't hit those heights. This title run for Braun Strowman has been very underwhelming. I don't blame him for all of it. It's a very difficult time. It's the same as Drew McIntyre. It wasn't the right time to put the title on Braun Strowman. The right time to put the title on Braun Strowman was a couple of years ago, and WWE missed that window. They missed that window, and it hurts Braun Strowman now because of it. I think the fact that he's been a Universal Champion now will help his credibility for a future world title run, but this title run has done nothing for him, and he's always felt like a transitional champion to get the belt off Goldberg and then get it onto someone that's a true main eventer. So I think The Fiend will leave the Universal Champion. How does Alexa Bliss play into this? She could side of either. There's certainly a couple of schools of thought when it comes to this one, right? You could have Alexa Bliss side of Braun Strowman. All of this sort of stuff. All of the idea that the friction between her and Braun Strowman, that's all been a ruse. It's all been a ruse to confuse The Fiend and ensure that Braun Strowman defeats The Fiend at SummerSlam. That they could go with that, or they can go the other side of it. Alexa Bliss now sides with The Fiend. The Fiend turns babyface. Braun Strowman's the heel. Braun Strowman was right. Everyone The Fiend touches, he changes, and he's changed Alexa Bliss. And now, I don't want to say Alexa Bliss becomes Sister Abigail because that argument and that discussion has been so overdone. It's been done to death. Who is Sister Abigail? Who is Sister Abigail? Nobody is. It's not Alexa Bliss. It's not Liv Morgan. It's not anyone. No one's Sister Abigail. The closest we got to seeing Sister Abigail was when Bray Wyatt dressed up in drag for that promo against Finn Balor, and they were going to have that match between the Demon and Sister Abigail at TLC in 2017. Apart from that, we ain't seeing Sister Abigail in WWE. We're not. The closest we're going to get is Abby the Witch. So I don't think that was ever the plan. Sports Keeda, shout out to my Sports Keeda brothers and sisters. They did an interview with Eric Rowan a couple of weeks ago, and he said that was never the plan. That never has been the plan to have a Sister Abigail. The fact that we're talking about it today shows how great Bray Wyatt did with those teasers, but that was never the plan. So Alexa Bliss isn't Sister Abigail. Could she side with The Fiend, though? Absolutely. And I'm sure that we're going to see some form of an angle of Alexa Bliss involved in this match somehow, and she'll play into the finish. There have been rumours about big angles involving Alexa Bliss at SummerSlam, so we'll have to wait and see on that. What are your thoughts? What do you think, Alexa Bliss? Who do you think she'll side with? Braun Strowman or The Fiend? Let me know in the live chat or the comment section below. In terms of the finish, as I mentioned, I think The Fiend will win this one. I hope Braun Strowman doesn't win. The Fiend should have never lost to Goldberg in the first place. The Fiend should still be undefeated. I'm not sure if The Fiend should ever be really doing jobs because he's that great a character. He's that much of a monster. The way to continue building him up is you have to win, and continue winning. Braun Strowman has done a million jobs at this point in his WWE career, so losing to The Fiend won't matter. And let's be honest, Braun Strowman beat Bray Wyatt at Money in the Bank. I believe technically the Wyatt Swamp fight was a no contest. You could say that Bray Wyatt won, but I think it was a no contest. I don't even know how you would win that match, to be honest, because those rules were never set out. There wasn't a referee or anything, so The Fiend's got to win. Bray Wyatt's got to get his win at some point. So I think the title will go back on Bray Wyatt, and then if it's on The Fiend, keep it on him. There is no need to take it off, at least until WrestleMania next year, because who else can be Universal Champion on SmackDown? Realistically, the reign hasn't really worked with Braun Strowman. The only other people I could think that could potentially be Universal Champions on SmackDown would be AJ Styles. But at this point in his career, does WWE want to put the Universal title on AJ? I don't think so. Possibly Jeff Hardy, but Jeff Hardy just won the Intercontinental title, and Jeff Hardy's contract's expiring in 9 months' time. So I don't think so. But what potentially we could see a Fiend versus Jeff Hardy feud. It depends if the Fiend's a babyface, though. You know, and I'm not sure I want to see the whole double champion thing that's been done to death at this point by WWE and just whoever. So it's an interesting match. I'm cautiously optimistic going into this one, though. As I mentioned, I think recently on SmackDown, the story that's been told between Braun Strowman and the Fiend has actually been pretty damn good in comparison to their previous matches. I think the addition of Alexa Bliss has been very good, and the storyline involving the Fiend, Strowman and Alexa Bliss has been very good. We don't know where it's going. That's always a good thing. And we know that Alexa Bliss will be involved in somehow, some form. And as I mentioned, I think the Falls Count Anywhere stipulation really does help this match. So excited, and I'm interested to see where they go with this. But what are your thoughts on Braun Strowman versus the Fiend tonight? What are your predictions? Who do you think is going to win? Bray Wyatt or Braun Strowman? Do you think we're going to see a new Universal Champion? What do you think we're going to see tonight? Let me know your thoughts. Let's have a look in the live chat. Tristan Miles says, I'm telling because you're saying he's boring and stuff. You don't like watching then leave. Oh, there's an argument. Universe GFX says, hey, Universe GFX, go check him out on Twitter. He did, or she, I don't know. They did an unbelievable poster of the Fiend for SummerSlam tonight. It was a Stranger Things style poster, and it's actually really, really cool. So be sure to check that out. Tristan says Eater of Worlds Bray Wyatt was pretty boring. Yeah, I agree. I do agree. Just the promos just never really did it for me. Anthony says there are fans that are saying the ThunderDome concept is trash without giving it a chance this weekend. If it doesn't work, it still has glitches Friday, yesterday, today, and Monday. Yeah, it's true. It is true. Like this is going to take time. It is going to take time. The whole ThunderDome thing, and that's what I said from the start. I felt that in reality that it was going to be a thing that's a work in progress, and it was something that was going to take time, and it's something that is going to improve over time, and they will get it right. We will change it whereby the backgrounds become all universal and all of that sort of stuff. It will improve over time. I'm sure the streams will get better. I'm sure the audios will get better. Nothing really like this has been done before. They've done the same with like the NBA, but this is different. WWE is trying out something new and trying out something revolutionary. They're not going to get it done first time. It's not going to get done first time. Like anything, it's going to be a work in progress. So I think it will take time. Cohen Dutch NL says the Fiend is going to win. I agree. I think the Fiend will lead Strowman to uncomfortable rooms, and one of them is Alexa Bliss. Yeah, I think, as I mentioned before, I think Alexa Bliss will be involved somehow in the finish. We'll have to see what that is. So, predictions, as I mentioned, about tonight's match, let me know your thoughts in the live chat or in the comments section below. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. It really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds on YouTube if they haven't seen our videos before. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. I will double check our subscriber count because I know that we're very, very close to 700 subscribers right now, and that was the aim. The aim was to get to 700 subscribers on SummerSlam weekend. We're actually now at 701, so thank you guys very, very, very much if you have subscribed recently. 701. We've hit our goal and SummerSlam hasn't even started, so let's see how far we can get before SummerSlam goes off of the air tonight. I really appreciate everyone that has taken the time to subscribe, watch the videos, listen to the videos. Honestly, I'm at a loss for words. I really am. I really, really do appreciate it. Everyone that takes the time to watch the videos, get in the live chat, comment on them, it's phenomenal. I really do appreciate it. As I mentioned, we will be doing SummerSlam live reactions and highlights at 11:30 tonight. So be sure to set a reminder for the stream once I've set it up later on today. If you haven't subscribed to Wrestle News 365, you can still do that. Click the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. I'll add another subscribe button on the end of this video once it's processed later on. You can also follow us on our social media platforms. The handles are on the screen right now. The links are in the description box below. It's at 365 Wrestle on Twitter and at Wrestle News 365 on Facebook and Instagram. So be sure to give us a like or a follow there if you haven't already. Let's double check the chat quickly. Anthony says, they say it's a field concept. Don't judge it by one day full of glitches and errors talking about Friday. Well, exactly. I'm only when I'm talking about the errors on Friday, that's from my end. I saw a lot of people that had positive things to say about it. So my experience is just that. My experience. That's all I can talk about it. I saw a lot of people praising it. As I mentioned, I'm going to hopefully be in the ThunderDome again tonight, and I will give you my thoughts on it again tonight. Ultimately, if you get involved in it, it can enhance your viewing experience. If not, and you're just watching it on the television again, it makes the show look better. So it's a win-win all round. It really is a win-win all round. If it's anything to improve the show, make it look better, then you can't discredit that. You can't discredit that. Cohen Dutch NL says, I hope that Alexa Bliss wins the SmackDown Women's Championship after SummerSlam. Well, it depends what Alexa Bliss does, of course, isn't it? I think Bayley's Women's Championship reign is probably going to be coming to a close soon, but I think potentially Bayley could be feuding with Sasha Banks, maybe over the title. So maybe Alexa Bliss could be out of the picture for a little bit. Reminder as well, if you do want to support us, we are accepting donations via PayPal. That's streamlabs.com/WrestleNews365. Streamlabs.com/WrestleNews365. There is a link in the description box below. So if you do want to support the channel, if you do like the content that we produce, you can go to streamlabs.com/WrestleNews365 and support the channel via PayPal donation. Any small amount, we really do appreciate it. It really does help us out run this channel and keep the content coming out. You can also support us by going to our merch store. The link is in the description box below for that, but it's wn365merch.com. That's wn365merch.com. We've got some cool and fun merchandise there: shirts, hoodies, mugs, or you name it, we've put it there. We're also going to be releasing some new merchandise soon. I've got some new designs that I'm working on, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. And again, that's a way of supporting the channel if you do enjoy the content that we produce. So as I mentioned, tonight I will be doing SummerSlam live reactions and highlights. So be sure to join us then. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today or this stream today. And I'll speak to you